Bullying is when a bully repeatedly harasses or physically harms another person who cannot easily defend him or herself. It involves a power imbalance between the bully and victim or target, because sometimes a bully can be physically stronger or intimidating in some way. Bullying can be physical, such as hitting, or it can be verbal, such as name-calling, or relational, such as destroying a relationship between friends. Today, I'm going to be talking to Holocaust survivors about bullying that they've experienced. So I'm going to talk first about the pyramid of hate so you can see the connection between bullying and genocide. So with the pyramid of hate, you can see that on the bottom it starts with bias, and then it goes the whole way up to the top with genocide. So let's talk a little bit about each level, starting at the bottom with bias. This includes things such as stereotyping, making insensitive remarks, and seeking out like-minded people. So when you do this, then it becomes the norm because the like-minded people are agreeing with you. Individual acts of prejudice is the next level, and this is bullying, name-calling, and dehumanization. And with dehumanization, this is when you think of the other person as being less than you. So then it makes it easier to treat them not as well because you don't even think of them as being the same as you. And the next level is discrimination. And this involves segregation. With segregation, you're actually not even being around certain people. And this can involve segregation where you work, go to school, and where you live. And the next level is bias-motivated violence. And this involves threats or terrorism. And in this level, someone actually can hurt someone else. And then the very top and final level is genocide. And this is the act or intent to deliberately and systematically annihilate an entire people. So you can see how in some cases bullying can lead to violence. So think of school shootings because of bullying, and maybe even fights at school that you've witnessed because of bullying. Not only does bullying have the potential to lead to violence, but it also can cause the victim or target, the bystanders, and even in some cases a bully to feel angry, depressed, or suicidal. So it's important that we all work together to try to stop bullying. Bullies need to be corrected and taught how to be kind and empathetic. Victims or targets need to learn what to do if they are bullied. And bystanders need to understand that they have an important role in sticking up for the victim or target, getting help from adults, and not supporting the bully.
My name is Schneider. I'm a child Holocaust survivor. I'll give you some information about myself and what happened to me and my family during the Holocaust. I was only 2.5 years old when World War II started, and I was born in a small town in Poland by the name of Lacey, which is near Lublin and not too far from Warsaw. When the war started, my father was in the Polish army, and he came home, and of course, the Germans defeated Poland in a very short time. He came home and he saw some of the atrocities that were already committed against the Jewish people, and he said, we better get out of here. We tried to escape into Russia. However, there was a peace treaty between the Germans and the Russians, and we couldn't get across the line. So we spent almost 2 years in the woods hiding from the Germans until 1941, and that's when the peace treaty between the Germans and the Russians broke up, and we were able to cross the river and into Russia. Once we got into Russia, my father was drafted into the Russian army, and they took my mother and I, and also I had a sister that was actually born in Russia, and they put us in a train, and they sent us to Ural Mountains, which are near Siberia. We spent the rest of the war in that area. It was very difficult, it was cold, and very little food. However, somehow we were able to survive. After the war in 1945, we were able to go back to Poland, and at that time we were trying to find out, well, we did find out that the The rest of the family were murdered by the Gestapo, which is the German police force. And we also, my father also came back with the Russian army into Poland, and he survived and started looking for us. He was able to find us in the DP camp, which is a displaced persons camp. So we all finally united. We didn't stay in Poland too long, as we found out, that most of our family, were murdered, and our house was destroyed. So we moved on to Austria. Then again, we spent in Austria. We spent another 5 years almost. And in 1948, actually, President Truman had a declaration which allowed something like 100,000 people, 100,000 Jewish people, to come to the United States. So we had filed for a visa, and also the Jewish community in Washington, PA, allowed us to actually brought us over, and that's pretty much what happened to us. Thank goodness we were not in any of the concentration camps like a lot of other survivors. However, life was difficult, where we were at. And from Washington, PA, I eventually wound up in Pittsburgh, as I married a Pittsburgh woman. So here we are at this point. Now that I'm retired, I joined the Holocaust Center, which I'm now the co-chairman of the Holocaust Survivors Organization, and I go out and speak to a lot of the students at various schools, and to tell them about the Holocaust, and hopefully by telling them some of the atrocities that were committed during the Holocaust, and we hope that they understand what happened and it shouldn't happen again. Thank you. It's an interesting question. In fact, I looked up in the dictionary about bullying: a person who hurts those that are weaker or different than they are. You should not want to hurt people that are different than you. You have to be very careful as to how you handle, other people, students, or whatever. You should not speak badly about someone that is different than you are, whether it's the color or religion or whatever else is involved. I have not experienced much bullying. I mean, I've seen some of the atrocities that were committed really, during the war, and even when we were escaping in the forest and so forth. However, I had somewhat a small experience when I came to the States, when I first came to school, and I was, I couldn't speak any English, and I was a little different. I was also very religious, and to school I wore a cap. And I remember that when I arrived at school, one of the kids took my cap off and started tossing it around, to the other kids, and I was very upset that it happened. Well, it happened a few times until finally I had to fight this kid, and eventually we became best of friends, and it didn't happen again. So that's the only time really that I can really point out that something happened to me that probably has to do with bullying. Well, first of all, I think you should stand up what is right, and not allow anyone get in your way. In other words, you should not discriminate against one another, whether it's religion, race, or whatever else is concerned. And each one of us has a mission to do something and not nothing. So we hope that we can learn from each other as to do the right thing